Welcome to Private Politics, where we prepare you for your next political conversation. I'm Jeronimo Cortina, a political science professor at the University of Houston.
And I'm Brandon Rottinghaus, also a political science professor here at the University of Houston. Thanks for hanging out with us and talking politics. There's just a lot of churn this week. Let's get right into it. Off the top, literally, I just checked my phone, and it turns out that Donald Trump is going to pardon Henry Cuellar, a representative here from Texas. Representative Cuellar has been accused of various bribery schemes under federal indictment. No more. So what do you think that this means for, I don't know, Texas politics, for the politics of South Texas in particular, maybe just how scandals work or don't?
I don't know. You're the expert on scandals.
Short answer is, well, scandals don't matter if you don't let them matter. And so that's one thing. The other thing to note, I think, is just that it wasn't going to matter anyway. Cuellar didn't have any real solid primary opponents. There's a chance he could lose in a general, but it's a pretty rare occasion where that happens. So, I mean, this is good for Cuellar because he gets out of this.
Do you think that he's going to switch parties?
Maybe so, right?
That's good
to watch because, maybe a little quid pro quo, which would be totally illegal. But, as long as you don't get caught, it's all good.
Yep.
I kind of think not, but, that's the rumor, right? And there's always a risk of that. These conservative Democrats are kind of on that line.
Yep.
The Democratic Party continues to kind of shift to the left. Maybe that flip is kind of the most politically expedient thing to do. Okay. Yeah.
Automatic flip.
There
you go.
There you go. Well, you called it. So actually, we're going to watch
We'll see. I said
this carefully.
Maybe.
Just
in case.
All of this is a maybe, my friend,
Okay.
right? We don't know, except there's one thing we do know, and that's that we have seen some results in the Tennessee special election.
That is correct.
And the Republican expectedly won and beat the Democrat by about 9 percentage points. But it's all about the margins because this is a Trump plus 20 district. The Republicans should have won this in a walk, but it cost millions of dollars in order to hold the seat. What do you make of the outcome of this, and what does it mean for the kind of election upcoming?
I mean, one of the interesting things is doing what is it, Monday quarterback?
Yes.
Quarterback Monday.
Yeah. Well, now football's on every day, so it's Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the morning, quarterbacking.
So one of the things is that during the campaign, the Republican candidate did not embrace Trump, 1,000%.
Right.
It was more adjacent in that sense.
Okay.
Maybe there's going to be some distancing.
You think that was like a liability for him?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was 100% a liability because over the past weeks, President Trump has said, affordability. A couple of days ago, he said that's a con job.
Right. Democrats
are just making things up. The economy is great, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we have said it here 11,000 times. It doesn't matter. Is when you go to the supermarket and you cannot buy Captain Crunch because they're very expensive for your kids. You feel it. There is no...
You got to buy the generic stuff, my friend.
Exactly. Well, I mean, even the generic stuff, right?
It's expensive,
There is no... amount of misinformation that cannot bring you to that space. That's reality. That's the supermarket. It happens every day or every week for a lot of people. So I think that is going to be important. And both the Democrat and the Republican ran in this issue of affordability. So I think they're testing waters. But yes, from 22% when President Trump won that district to 9%.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's a real swing. And I mean, like I said, the margin matters. People were looking at the margins in New Jersey and in Virginia last month when the elections were held there. So this is definitely, I think, an alarm bell for a lot of Republicans. But at the same time, of course, special elections are special for a reason, right?
Yes.
They're unique and they're kind of rare. The turnout was 90% in some counties, which you're probably not going to get, even in a midterm where people are really agitated. Some fundamentals were still true. Republicans still basically performed well in rural areas and some of the suburban areas. So, it's not the case that
it's
this
a very red district from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
this is like your sweater level red. It is very, very red. You're not going to see a Democrat win this. And obviously, 9-point spread is pretty significant. But it's the difference in margin that's most important. And because you're seeing a lot of the redistricting efforts, basically shrink some of the margins of these districts to about a 10, 5 5 to 10% Republican plus district, that means a lot of Republicans maybe get swept under here because, they're not going to be able to overcome this. So we'll see how that plays out. But, it's certainly worth noting that this is a pretty important kind of moment and may spur some additional retirements, right? We're seeing those retirements even here in Texas, which we'll tease to a point we'll talk about in a second. But before we get there, let's talk about the Senate race, which is of just constant intrigue here in Texas. On the Democratic side, of course, we've got James Talarico running, we've got Colin Allred running, and maybe, just maybe, we have Jasmine Crockett running. She has proposed an announcement that she's going to give next week, which comes about 90 minutes before the filing deadline. She hasn't said what she's going to do, but there's a lot of speculation that she'll jump into this race. If she does, what can we expect?
I have no idea.
We're just going to put our heads down and just wait for the end of it.
I think it's very characteristic of the Democratic Party in Texas, right? So on the one hand, you have a, let's say, moderate Democrat. That would be Colin Allred. Pretty in the middle issues, very Democratic issues. Then you have Talarico in the sense of being this new wave of Democrats, but in a different way, just trying to highlight the 1%ers, right? And how the economy and the political system is not working for the average American. And then on the other hand, you have Jasmine Crockett that is just a firebrand and goes left, right, boom, 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 boom. It's like just
like a sledgehammer to
exactly
all of it. And that's what Democrats like. And that's frankly why she's ahead in the polls, right? I mean, before she even announced this, like a month plus ago, you saw her leading the field. She, in a hypothetical matchup, leads everybody else by 31%. O'Rourke, who's of course also not running, is tied for second with Talarico at about 25%. So even not running, Crockett's already ahead. But really, it's beyond that is important in terms of the demographics she puts together that make this work. And that's that she's got strong support among black voters with 45%. The next person closest is Allred at 33%. You've got a gender advantage for her, which again, in a Democratic primary is huge.
Right.
27% to 19% for Talarico. Generational support among Gen Xers, she leads by 29% to 24% for Talarico. So she's leading in a bunch of these, including like Democrats who are more likely to vote in Democratic primaries. So she basically is already ahead without having actually even said she's running. And I think that shows significant strength. If you look at the matchups of her versus the potential Republican candidates, she has basically a 2-3 point lead on John Cornyn and is more or less tied with Ken Paxton. So even again, without having raised a dime for this, she's able to really jump to the top of the field. And I guess my question to you is, again, the Democrats are in a bit of disarray here, right? Because I think they'd prefer not to have like their heaviest hitters all running against each other. It's not like the 1980s anymore. Like they need to spread this out. But is this going to be a potentially successful enterprise for Democrats? Is this the moment where Democrats find their way out of the wilderness, right? And, for the first time since, Jurassic Park was in theaters, right?
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, the Democrats would have to, one way or the other, sit down and say, like, why don't you run for this one? You stay in Congress, or I stay in Congress, you stay in the House, whatever it is, right?
They tried that, right?
Right, they tried.
And Castro said, no one could agree. So, and clearly they can't.
and they're not going to agree.
Right.
So just let it, play out and see what happens.
Let the market decide.
Yeah, let the market decide. But I think that, Democrats are going to need for this campaign someone that can rally the base. And both, I mean, especially when we think about Ken Paxton, he rallies his base in a very, very, very good way.
So true, yeah.
So in order to be competitive, let's say Paxton wins, you need the same opposite effect on the Democratic side.
Yeah, totally true.
So you mean a firebrand candidate that is going to be willing to debate Paxton. If that happens, it's going to be a marvelous debate. And it's going to be rallying the base because that's how Jasmine Crockett is politically speaking.
Yeah.
And then the other ones are fine, but it's what's going to rally the base? It's, again, turnout.
Yeah, and that's what she can offer, and that's why Democrats like her. I've seen some Colin Allred kind of, not ads, but like kind of the digital stuff lately where he goes and does like a job for afternoon or for a day or something. There's one where he goes to become a bartender. It's pretty interesting. Like, he's good at it, but could be better at it. And it certainly highlights the affordability question, which is going to be, I think, the watchword for the next election. But he doesn't rally the base the way that she does, even having not decided to run. So we're going to watch this. Obviously, we don't know what she's going to do exactly, but the speculation is she's going to run. And so we'll see how this changes the dynamics of the Senate race, which then changes the dynamics of like the Senate potentially nationwide, right? Because a lot of the money is going to flow here as a result of that, and it's going to change the dynamics of races all over the country. So we're going to watch this. But also something that's going to change the dynamics of races all over the country is the redistricting fight. While we were eating turkey and enjoying some mashed potatoes, the Texas kind of battle on redistricting got to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, in a nutshell, basically says, well, let's hear some briefing on this. Let's make a decision about what to do next. So we're still in a bit of a holding pattern. What do you make of all of this, and what do you think it's going to mean for the nation's politics?
I don't know.
Yeah, same.
I mean, I've been saying that. But the Supreme Court can go either way. Now, if the Supreme Court says, yeah, what Texas did is fine, then forget about the Voting Rights Act. Basically, it's going to be dead, right?
They could use this as leverage to get rid of it.
I mean, that's it. I mean, and the other cases that we have in Louisiana, and that's also, something that matters. Then, on the other hand, we have, for example, how the Supreme Court ruled in the case of Alabama, right? So right now is like, which one is going to be this time?
Yeah, how are they going to go?
If they go with the Texas map that these 3-panel judge in El Paso said, you know what, this is racial gerrymandering, then the BRA, Voting Rights Act, would be basically useless, dead, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's hard to know what they're going to do because the court could do lots of different things here, but they seem to signal that they want to kind of have the maps that were redrawn into effect and then litigate the rest of it after. So it could mean that we kind of have to redo this, which is a real pain. And I think people are still confused about this, right? And we know this is confusing for voters. A lot of members are still waiting to see kind of where they're going to run because they don't know what the district lines look like.
Exactly. But that's a consequence, right? It's a consequence of saying we're December. Yeah. They're going to, I mean, January file is like, you have to file in January.
Yeah. We're at the goal line here. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
It's like, you cannot say like, well, you know what, we're going to change it and then change everything else.
Right.
Affecting, all the counties in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And then, depending on how it goes one way or the other, then, for example, Indiana, that has been a little bit reticent to say about the redistricting, even though they have a 40-10 majority in the Indiana Senate, they're saying like, yeah, we don't want to go there, right?
Yeah.
And then Florida. So it's, and of course, California.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of stuff moving, right? That needs a clear signal.
We're not going to know much until the Supreme Court rules.
Yep.
And the thinking is that they'll do this soon because they have to make some kind of determination in order for this to go forward. So we'll wait and see. In fact, they may be doing it as we speak, working hard at, putting this together. But this is really the question that is going to dominate the elections going forward. So we'll keep an eye on that. But to me, what I think is interesting is that, like, the Democrats, like, leaving the state, breaking quorum, using this and highlighting this as a political story may have helped because they're basically priming this to say, look, this is all about the politics of this, right? And you're using essentially the one tool that is not permissible to be able to draw these lines. And that's what the court agreed to. That is race, that they are using these lines and drawing these things in ways that basically organize this in a way that's unfair and unconstitutional. So this may have actually helped. So Democrats are taking a bit of a victory lap, but it could be one where they trip, right before the goal, right before the end. And so we're going to wait and see, how that plays out. But that's the question. In addition to that, we've got a bunch of new laws going into effect here in Texas, right? By virtue of the Constitution. Some of these laws don't go into effect until later on. And so what are some ones that highlights in your mind?
So we have the replacement of the STAR test. So now we're going to have shorter tests throughout the school year. I think that's a great option. Having lived through 3 STAR tests with my kids, I think that's...
I see the trauma, like, in your eyes. And I know a lot of people feel
complicated.
the same.
Yeah, but also, I think it changes the dynamic in which teachers are going to be able to teach and not to teach in order to pass the STAR test, because there's a lot of things associated with the STAR test. So I think that allowing teachers, especially at the high school level, to be focusing on promoting creative thinking or critical thinking, or whatever it is, I think it's wonderful.
Civics, please.
100%, right? Civics. Some other laws is the lawsuit rights for abortion pill distribution. And my favorite is ivermectin availability.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
That will be available without a prescription, which is a medicine that is used, I think, for... I guess
for like horses or something like that.
For horses,
commonly used. For that,
So it okay.
You're going to be first in line.
Yes.
I agree. I think those are great ones. A couple more that I highlighted are really thematic. One is about the pressing of the legal questions, and that is a range of these different types of laws. So one, as you said, allows people to sue anyone who manufactures or distributes the abortion pills into Texas. That's going to get litigated, is being litigated. The 10 Commandments litigation is going on, right? That is required. The law requires there to be a post of the 10 Commandments. That's being litigated. There's a ban on DEI in K through 12, which restricts hiring, instructional materials in secondary education. So that, again, is going to get challenged. So there's a lot of these where we're seeing just messaging happening in these bills. And it may or may not be legal ultimately. In other cases, we've seen these states kind of resolve this in an out-of-court fashion, so it's possible that'll happen in Texas, but I think somewhat unlikely given the politics of it. I also am noticing some things that basically reduce the power of local government. And so this example, I think, covers a couple of different dimensions. One is that there's a requirement that county jails enter into these 287G agreements to cooperate with ICE. There's another that bans governments from companies and individuals from China, Russia, Iran, North Korea from owning land in Texas.
Yep.
And then another one that bans cities and counties from funding travel for abortion-related services out of state. So again, we're seeing a kind of continuing clamp down on what local government can do. The state is sort of big brother here. They're basically, restricting what local governments can do. Democrats are saying we need to have local control. Republicans are saying your local control is sort of too lefty. So that, I think, dimension is going to continue as things go on. But my very favorite is the PIMPS bill. This is Symphonia Thompson bill. This is a bill that basically protects human trafficking victims from being prosecuted for crimes they commit while they're basically coerced to do so.
Oh, okay.
Now this was a Symphonia Thompson bill that was a couple of times at the governor's desk. He vetoed it. It ends up being a Senate bill because a lot of the friction with respect to the politics of the walkout led to them essentially ignoring Democratic bills. And so this is a Symphonia Thompson bill. Ms. T gets credit for this, but it is a bill that she was very adamant about and made many references to taking on the pimps in the ledge. So that's an interesting bill too. So that is now law. Let's shift gears a bit and talk local politics.
All right.
John Whitmire is once again in a bit of hot water
Yep.
with the local Democratic Party. What's going on?
Well, he got a resolution that condemns his political behavior, quote unquote, because he went to a fundraiser for Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw. So
Is this bad for him?
I mean, is it? I don't know. No. I mean, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, my sense is that it's definitely a knock, but not a fatal blow. It is certainly something that people have long assumed about John Whitmire, that he's not like the best Democrat. He's certainly not the most progressive Democrat.
Oh, absolutely
In my
not.
telling, he's basically the last blue dog Democrat.
Right, but that was clear since day one.
I feel like
there's
it's
no
clear.
surprises there.
No, I agree.
He has been very transparent about it.
Yeah.
And the way that he works is he crosses the aisle more often than not.
Yeah.
And we have seen that in all his years in the state legislature, when he was in the House and we was in the Senate. So there is no surprises.
Yep.
No,
this is my take, is that he's the last blue dog Democrat. And this was a time in Texas history where people were willing to cross the aisle and really more issue focused than party focused. And that's definitely where he is.
Yep.
That's a winning strategy, at least to some degree, because he's able to focus on things like safe streets and getting the garbage picked up on time, making sure potholes are filled. Like, these are really kind of basic nuts and bolts things. And like, you know, wasn't it Fiala LaGuardia who said that there's no like Republican or Democratic way to fill a pothole, right? People aren't voting slavishly based upon partisanship in local elections. I mean, it certainly motivates people, but it's not the same kind of thing like you see in a midterm where Donald Trump's at the top of the ticket. So this is a different kind of world, and John Whitmire is pretty good at navigating that. And
I think so.
This is a little embarrassing, I think you'd have to say, but I don't think that this is like a fatal blow for his politics or for his reelection. But someone's going to run against him, right? Somebody in the Democratic primary or in the primary is going to try to go after him. Do you think it's going to work? I mean, is he going to get a second term, I guess, as a result of some of this friction?
I mean, I think this is irrelevant. I think that people do not necessarily focus on partisanship. As you said, it's bread and butter issues, right? Am I being kept safe? Yes, no. Is the recycling coming on Thursdays as it's supposed to be?
You know what? To his credit, it's come on time for the last couple of months. So,
there you go.
You know what? Thumbs up. Well, John Whitmire may be sticking around, but Troy Nehls, the representative from the kind of Fort Bend area and Point South, is not. He's deciding to hang it up and not run for office. This actually is pretty significant for a couple of reasons. Number one is that we're seeing a mass exodus of Republicans nationally, but we're certainly seeing that in Texas. This is the 6th open seat in Texas. That's a lot. Almost as many as we saw in the Texodus in about 2018, 2016, 2018. So there's a lot of churn happening in the Republican Party in Texas. What's going on?
Well, he said that he wants to spend more time with his family and then pass the baton to Trevor Nehls. That is the brother.
With his family, who is also going to be in Congress now.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting race, to say the least. Super interesting because Fort Bend County has become more and more competitive. So I think that that's going to be one point. And also the fact that, I mean, he is quite young. He's 57. And he's saying enough.
I mean, we talked about this last week because we've seen this happen a couple times. Marcus Luttrell, Michael McCall, they're all retiring. And they're for different reasons, right? But one common reason is that there's a chance that the Republicans won't win the House, and that means you're in the minority. And being in the minority is no fun, right, in Congress. So you don't have any power. You're basically kind of cut out of the deals that get made. And so I think this is probably a writing on the wall for a lot of these members. The other thing that occurred to me is this, and that's that a lot of people now are kind of short-termers. Like, they don't see Congress as a career. Whereas we know that, the longer you're in Congress, the more power you accrue, right? Seniority is key in this. But a lot of members don't care about that, right? They want to come, they want to make a splash, they want to talk about the issues, want to press the things they care about, and then they're willing to get out. So we don't have term limits or anything kind of close to it, but this is basically kind of the effective term limits where, like, you're seeing people kind of bail out after a couple of years saying, like, well, I've done what I wanted to do, or there's no path here to do what I need to do, so I'm just going to kind of step aside and let somebody else do it.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. And people have jumped in here because there are a couple of interesting people running here, like J.C. Jetton, who's a former member of the Texas House.
Absolutely.
That could be an interesting, again, as you say, race.
I mean, especially for the Republican primary, right?
Yeah. Is this a winnable seat for a Democrat?
I would say that it's going to be competitive, and it's going to depend on who is running for the Republicans and who is running for the Democratic side.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because you could see a kind of extremism and ideology, one way or the other, turning off a lot of voters in this area, which does include a significant chunk of Fort Bend County, which is rapidly changing politically and in terms of population. So this is possibly a winnable seat for Democrats, especially if you've got this tidal wave happening. Well, Troy Nehls is not running, but the ShamWow guy is. I had to look up what the ShamWow guy's actual name was.
Dean's Shlummy.
Okay. Yes, he's running as a Republican to try to unseat John Carter, who's 84 years old. So John Carter says, welcome to the race. I think outside the box, too. What do you think about this? Do you have a ShamWow?
I do have a ShamWow.
Do you? Okay.
Oh, yeah,
How's
absolutely.
It work?
I mean, I bought it probably, 10 years ago or more. It still works.
Good. So, what about a slap chop? He also was part of that. I did some deep dive on this, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know the slap chop.
It's like you put your vegetable down, and you just like hit the top of it, and it chops it up, randomly chops it up. Yeah.
No.
Okay. You do your own chopping. I know. Yeah,
I do.
Well, let's talk about the kind of national politics. The one thing that's on everybody's mind is about the crisis happening in Venezuela. This week, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is in hot water over reportedly authorizing a follow-up boat strike in the Caribbean that ended up killing 2 remaining survivors after an initial hit on the boat. 11 people were on board and only 2 people survived. The order was then to basically kill those people, which they did, and the blowback has been pretty intense. What do you make of this?
Well, he said that he was not sticking around to make that decision, right?
Yeah.
So now there is this deflection from the president, from the defense secretary, just saying, we don't have anything to do.
Which is giving Congress an opportunity to say, well, look, all these conflicting stories and confusion here could only offers more investigation.
Oh, and there's going to be an investigation because they're now talking to Admiral Frank Bradley that, in theory, was the one who gave the order of the, I guess, killing the survivors. We don't know anything. This is just from what we know from media reports. But the issue is about if there were international laws broken and crimes, war crimes committed.
Yeah. Interesting, too, is that although the Trump administration is trying to kind of quell who can get what coverage from the Department of War, it didn't work, right? The coverage is still pretty wall-to-wall here.
It is.
It's going to be what we talk about all week next week.
And that's a topic that we will return next week. I'm Jeronimo Cortina.
And I'm Brandon Rottinghaus. The party keeps up next week.